9 o'clock on your Tuesday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you here. Happy April Fool's Day.
Lovely day. It's going to be so much fun seeing all the jokes out there and stuff. I woke up this morning, saw there was a notification. It said Hunter Dickinson's getting a 7th year of eligibility. I'm like, all right, I gotta stay in mind here that it's April Fool's Day, man, because it could get bad.
Today's the day where you don't trust anything.
Yeah.
Go get your second or third verification before you believe anything. Are you like jokes to yourself? Did you ever do anything growing up for April Fool's Day?
I mean, I like to joke around and stuff, but like April Fools, I mean, like, I can't really think of anything particular. Maybe maybe one year I joked that I broke my parents' TV with a rock or something, and they came home and I searched up a picture of the a broken TV.
Wait, how old were you when this happened?
Probably in late middle school, early high school, just something like that. But honestly, man, I can't think of anything super crazy that I would have done. What about you?
So it's funny because growing up, my sister started this trend that every April Fool's Day, because we had a sink, and you know the little spray nozzles that sit next to the faucet or whatever. Every April Fool's Day, she would put a rubber band around it because our mom was the first one to wake up in the morning. She'd go in the kitchen, clean the kitchen or whatever, and she was always going to turn the sink on. And every time she did, because the rubber band was on the thing, it would spray her and get her soaked, and she'd have to go change clothes or whatever. That was something my sister did every single year. And when she went off to college, my sister and I are 10 years apart, I remember she called me the day before. So on March 31st, she's like, hey, I'm not going to be home for this April Fool's Day. You got to do this to Mom. So I kept the tradition going, I guess, for the next year or so. That was something that she always did, and we just did every year, I guess. That's the only thing that I specifically remember for April Fool's Day.
It sounds like fun, though. April Fool's is fun, but it's also I don't know. It's just kind of a silly holiday because you spread fake news and people just think it's real.
In today's world with social media and stuff anyway, you already have to take everything with a grain of salt.
Exactly.
I can't tell you how many times that I've been scrolling through and something from NBA Centel is there, and for a brief second I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, oh, it's Centel, not Central.
Did you see the other day Gigi Jackson, former Gamecock, when the Grizzlies coach got fired? I forget what he said he was doing, but he was doing something, and then he found out the news, and he's like, that must be from Sentinel or something.
Yeah,
but no.
Well, hey, the Luka trade.
Yeah,
I mean, Shams Charania had to come out and tell people he was not hacked.
Yeah,
because it was oh, that's dumb. That would never ever happen.
It was groundbreaking.
It was believe anything, or hopefully not believe everything initially anyway.
Yeah.
But today especially, just make sure you're extra careful because you don't want to get caught with something that, isn't true.
Yeah, well, luckily I don't think there's anything too crazy in the South Carolina athletic space. Unless baseball loses. I mean, baseball winning today would probably be an April Fool's joke with the way things have gone lately. So
yeah, it's, not too much to laugh about for this baseball team so far this season. We'll get into plenty of that as the hour certainly goes along, but it is 9 o'clock, and that means we got to kick things off with our Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up.
Time to get hyped.
Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm.
Sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803-ALL-9s. Before we get into baseball discussion, last night the women's Final Four officially set. Texas taking care of TCU and UConn taking care of Southern Cal. So all three of the remaining teams left have beaten South Carolina this season. That has probably never ever happened before on either men's or women's, that the other three teams that you have the possibility of playing have all beaten you during the season.
And again, I think it comes down to the fact that South Carolina, as we've said many times before, schedules harder than anyone else out there. So makes for really interesting competition these next well, definitely in the Final Four, and then going into the championship game if South Carolina can get that far. But yeah, all but one seed is moving on, and Southern Cal is the only one that didn't advance.
Well, and you can ask the question of, okay, if Juju Watkins plays last night, does Southern Cal beat UConn? I don't know if they do. UConn is playing at a crazy level right now. Paige Becker's 31 points again last night. She's playing out of her mind as she wraps up her college career. Even with Juju Watkins, I don't know if they're beating that UConn team.
UConn is very, very good. I mean, South Carolina knows this from the way that UConn came in this building and dominated them like about a month or so ago. So, look, it's going to be very tough for South Carolina, regardless of if it was UConn or USC, whoever it would have been that won that game. It doesn't even really matter because Texas is the team that awaits now. And the fourth matchup against the Gamecocks this year, they'll be facing the Longhorns. I mean, that's how many times have two teams – we talk about facing potentially three teams that have beaten you in a season in the last four standing. But how many times in a year can we say a basketball team has faced another four separate times?
I'm struggling to think. When they played Mississippi State the other year in the championship game, did they play them? How many times did they play them during the season?
Let's see. That would have been 17?
Yeah. Let's see. Because that's the only other.
In Columbia in the regular season. They played in the SEC tournament. And then they played in the national championship. So, yeah, that's 4 times, though, is ridiculous. And it's mainly because of the home and home in the SEC regular season. So, again, it's crazy to think about that could happen. And, you count the coin flip. It's technically the 5th time they're meeting in some form.
Technically, that is very true. And Carolina goes into that game as a 4.5-point favorite. Of course, they've won 2 out of 3 matchups this year. I wonder if Vic Schaefer is going to have anything to say about the crowd in Tampa.
Oh, my gosh.
It's as far as plane rides go, it's closer to South Carolina, but it's not that much farther from Texas. So you have the opportunity to make it a fair crowd, but we know the fans like to travel.
Yeah, it's an 8-hour car ride, I think, to Tampa, or maybe 7.
Yeah, 8 hours. About right.
I mean, Texas, you got to fly, but,
sure.
Then again, South Carolina's flying too, and a lot of people are going to fly to Tampa, I would imagine. I mean, the drive would be fine. You can stop at Buc-ee's, all that stuff, go to Florida, but, nah, man, people are going to be flying, and here's the thing. If you're a Texas fan, you can't make it out to the Final Four. That is what it is. But, you should be able to see a good Texas crowd there, plus South Carolina. I mean, it's going to be I don't think it'll be split. I think South Carolina fans will show up in droves, but Texas fans will definitely show up, just like they did in Greenville.
Plenty more about that as the week goes along. UConn UCLA playing on Friday night at 9 o'clock. UConn the 8.5-point favorite of that. And again, winner of both those games will go on to play the national championship game coming up on Sunday. It might feel like a national championship game tonight. Paul Maneri dubbed it as a Game 7 over the weekend after being swept by Tennessee. But South Carolina has to win tonight against Presbyterian. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You have to end your 7-game losing streak, and you take on Presbyterian tonight.
Oh, my gosh, man. If you lose tonight, I don't even know what to say because people already don't care right now. They're checked out. I mean, it hasn't been fun, man. This team just needs a win. This is not a good Presbyterian team. They're a game under 500. I mean, you got to be able to win this game. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I don't care if you're throwing 12 pitchers tonight. You got to be able to win this game. You need your guys to step up, and we'll see if they do. It's just really what it comes down to is, are they going to be able to step up, get the job done? They have not been playing that bad lately. I think just do a little bit better tonight, and we'll see what happens. I think they should be able to win, but I feel like it's never a guarantee anymore with this team.
Preston brought up an interesting point in the last hour, and he said last year they played that midweek game against Georgia Southern, which was almost on the exact same day. It was April 3rd last year, and they lost the game 8-0. And he said, now they did go on, or they'd coming off losing 2 out of 3 against Alabama, They lost 2 out of 3 against A&M the next weekend. But he said that loss to Georgia Southern in the midweek is where he thinks a lot of people lost hope in this team. And obviously, they still made the postseason, but we knew they weren't going to go that far. Kingston gets fired, and we all know what happened, with all that. But he kind of pointed to the beginning of April as the point where people lost hope in the team a year ago. And, man, if you lose to Presbyterian, and I know you have easier matchups with Mississippi State and A&M coming up the next couple of weeks, but they're both on the road. And if you can't beat Presbyterian, again, a team that's struggling in the midweek, the belief that you're going to be able to go on the road and pick up wins against two teams that are struggling themselves is probably going to fall off.
Yeah, like things can happen. Like you can lose this game and then go out here and just play a lot better on the road. Maybe that's ultimately what this team needs, is to go on the road. But at the same time, if they lose this game, it's just like this is more or less like kind of like rock bottom, just because it would be an 8-game losing streak, and it'd be really rough to lose a game like this.
There is no point, especially in college baseball, because you're playing roughly a third of the games you do in Major League Baseball, but there is no point in any baseball, Major League, pro, high school, where an 8-game losing streak is something that you just say, whatever, no big deal. Like, no, it's a big deal. And South Carolina is trying to not let that happen tonight.
Yeah, especially since their season is so much shorter than a professional season. Like 56 games, man, you're at the halfway point right now. Tonight's game is number 30 on the year. You really cannot afford to lose this game, and I don't think they will. I think they are going to be able to handle business tonight, and it's going to set them up to go on the road here and take on a team that is in the dumps right now in Mississippi State. And look, you win the series this weekend, you got another midweek game against Upstate next week. You can really start to stack a little bit of a nice little stretch together here, but it does not matter if you don't take care of business tonight.
Things get rolling tonight. First pitch, 7 o'clock. Pregame coverage starting at 6:45 right here on the game as Coach Maneri's crew tries to get themselves back on track for a resuming SEC play coming up this weekend. Spring ball rolling on as we're a couple of weeks in. We heard from some assistants yesterday. We'll dive into what's happening in the trenches with South Carolina coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you on your Tuesday here on the game. Tyler Ed here once again, reminding you about our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialist. If you were here in the Midlands yesterday, you know we got a pretty heavy dose of rain. And if you have an open crawl space under your home and recently experienced a storm, you might have some standing water under there. May not sound like a big deal, but trust me, it is. Because that high humidity and condensation in that crawl space can create mold, mildew. It can invite pests like termites into your home, which you absolutely do not want. And about half the air that you breathe in your home comes from your crawl space. You don't want to be breathing in all that nasty stuff with mold and mildew and all that other stuff. That's where our friends at Canty Foundation Specialist come in. Go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfix.com, and they will send a professional out to your home to evaluate your foundation issues and get them fixed so you and your family can live comfortably going forward. Again, go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfix.com for our friends at Canty Foundation Specialist. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you here on your Tuesday here on the game. Dive into what some of the assistant coaches had to say yesterday when talking to the media for spring football in just a moment. But we got some tickets to give away. Tartan Day South this upcoming weekend over at historic Columbia Speedway. We got some family 4-pack tickets to give away. I have 3 right now. And don't call. Text in to the Firehouse Subs text line at 803-404-6100 for your chance to win a family 4-pack of tickets to go to Tartan Day South this weekend, April 3rd through 6th, out of historic Columbia Speedway. Again, text 803-404-6100 for your chance to win. I'll get to those here in just a moment. Whereas we're moving along in spring ball, we are a little over 2 weeks away from the spring game, wrapping things up on April the 18th. We've gotten the chance to hear from a lot of different assistants so far. Now we're getting into position coaches this week. Yesterday, we heard from a couple of those. We'll start off with Lonnie Teasley as he was talking about continuity on the offensive line and how important that is for this upcoming season.
Yeah, I think that does help a lot because as the year, as you know, you start in camp and then you go through the year, like you see different looks and you may not even have to say anything to a guy. You know what's happening because you've been playing next to him all year. So that definitely helps. We like right now, spring ball is the time where you have time because we don't have to play a game where I can change the lineups around so we can figure out who those 3 interior, are going to be, and really all 5, not just the 3 interior. So I'm not really worried about the consistency that much right now because I want to make sure we get the right 5 out there. But I do, during practice, I try to make sure the guys are getting reps with this center, so they got experience with him and they understand how he communicates and runs the show. So right now it's just about getting ourselves better, but definitely by summertime you want to have some consistency because they can grow a lot faster.
So the offensive line has been, unfortunately, a major story for this team the past couple of years. The best offensive line is one you don't have to talk about because it means they're doing their job. They're protecting, opening up gaps for the run game, all that kind of stuff. When you're having to talk about them, that means they're doing things wrong, right? 2 seasons ago, they couldn't stay healthy for one, and they were giving up a ton of sacks. Last year, stayed healthy, but we're still giving up a ton of sacks, and Lenore Sellers eventually got to the point where he was just evading guys being in his face enough to where it wasn't as big of a story late in the season, but they were still allowing guys through left and right.
Yeah, I mean, no, you're totally right on that. And it really was a rough beginning to last season, but the whole continuity thing, as the season progressed, they stuck with the same starting 5 pretty much the entire year. And, outside of the occasional other guys starting, from, a backup starting like Tree Babalade started a game last year and stuff, for the most part, man, it was the same starting 5. And I think that helped because you had the same group out there and they're able to mesh together. And by, pretty much with everything last season, pretty much by the halfway point going into the back end of the season, they were, they played enough together to where it's like, all right, they got it down and they started letting up less sacks and they were protecting Sellers a lot better. There were some games with no sacks on the final line, which is very rare for South Carolina as of late. And
but again,
it did help.
There were some of those games where there could have been sacks.
There could have been. Now,
but Lenore Sellers was athletic enough to get out of it.
Yes. You always have to remember that Lenoris can make insane plays with his feet that it's like, how does he not get sacked 10 times a game? But again, his offensive line also deserves some credit because they did block pretty well. And now you got to go out here and replace a lot of those guys this year because you're losing your 3 interior and then you're bringing back your 2 tackles. And we assume that Kason Henry and Josiah Thompson are going to be starting again this year, but that's never a guarantee. And we'll see. I mean, the offensive line is going to look much different this year regardless, though.
Yeah, and again, the core in that interior was the best part of your offensive line because your tackles struggled all last season, and that didn't mean your interior didn't have its problems either, but they certainly played better on the inside than they did on the outside. And again, you're replacing all those guys this season, and we don't exactly know what that's going to look like. That's going to be a story we're going to be following throughout the entire offseason leading up to the start of the year. kind of similarly, when you talk about the defensive line and what it's going to look like as you're losing the majority of talent from there as well. Travion Robertson yesterday talking about if he expects the D-line to rotate like it did a season ago.
That's a hard question to answer because, as the season goes, things happen, and I would like to rotate the number of guys that we're going to take. If we're taking 6 guys, I want to rotate all of them. But it's hard to answer that question right now, how I see it going. I like to wait till August and my 6 guys or 7 guys I'm traveling, see how healthy they are and what they're doing. This is a new group, so I'm learning them, they learning me, so it's hard to see how the rotation going to go in the middle of spring right now. So I wish I could tell you, but I cannot tell you how the rotation going to go in the middle of spring. But it's ideal to have a good rotation. This is a hard league, tough league to play in. We got good O-line, good D-line, and it's good to have a good rotation. So I would like to have a nice rotation up front.
And just because you have the bodies in the room doesn't mean those guys are going to see the field. You have to be good enough. You have to have the production to be able to get out there and know that those guys can make an impact. And last year you had a embarrassment of riches in that room to the point where, Nick Barrett got to redshirt because you just had so much talent there, you didn't really need him. You know what I mean? And that brings him back for another year, which is great. But him and Goodwine, okay, Goodwine, obviously a highly touted guy coming from Alabama. We think he can be good. We haven't seen the full complement of that. Xavier Hardy coming in, who's tore it up in the JUCO ranks. Think he's going to be good. Don't know for sure if he's going to translate to this level. Brownlow Dinley, highly recruited guy coming out of high school, going to A&M. We think he can be good, but we don't know for sure. You're going to have to wait and see with these guys, unfortunately.
That's the perfect way to put it, wait and see. There's just a lot of what-ifs with this group. Now, if they live up to their potential, it's going to be great, I think. But if it's a little bit of a slow burn process, then it won't be what we saw last year in terms of, all right, you can plug and play. You could put, Boogie, Tonka, TJ, any of these guys rotate in there, and you know what you're going to get out of them, productivity. With this group, it's a little bit more like, all right, it's Nick Barrett, Monkel Goodwine, the returning guys, Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy. You have, Xavier Hardy,
Devontae Miles,
Devontae
Green,
a lot of
couple freshmen.
Yeah, a couple freshmen, a lot of guys that they're not what you had last year, but that's okay because you have some guys, you have enough bodies, I think, to get them out there. But like you said, man, you're not just rotating bodies out there for the sake of rotating bodies. If they're good enough and they're traveling with the team, it seems like T-Rob is going to be rotating them in and out.
You also had 4 guys last year in TJ and Boogie and Tonka and DeAndre Jules that you knew all to some degree were going to have a chance to play at the next level. Now, again, it sounds like TJ Chandler's going to go pretty high. The athleticism of a guy like Tonka, he's going to get his opportunity. Boogie's going to get his chance to, make his way onto a roster. Whether he sticks or not, we'll have to see. Same thing with DeAndre Jules. All those guys had prospects to play at the next level. I don't know if going into the season you can say that about any of these guys as of right now. We hope that's going to be the case. They all end up being great, and we're talking about them getting drafted too, but you don't have that confidence going into the season with any of these guys right now.
Yeah, no, you definitely don't. And there's no solidified early round draft picks. I don't think on this defensive front right now on the interior tackle, but that can change, man. All it takes is a good season for Nick Barrett or Monkel Goodwine to take that next step, and then they're off to the NFL. So we will see what happens. It's that we still have an entire spring to get through here, and then the summer, and a lot of roles will be chiseled out. And I'm looking forward to seeing what this rotation does look like, because this is probably one of the main spots where it's like, you lost so much talent.
Sure.
How are you going to move forward?
And when are y'all back out there to watch practice again?
Thursday morning. 9:43.
9:40. Did they hit it on time last week?
Yeah, they did. They were good about it last week. So
because you saw about the same thing last week.
It was,
for the most part.
I think it was 3 periods last week, but it was more so they did their stretching, and then it got into all right, they're going to do a little bit of positional drills and stuff, but they had pads on, so it was a little bit more active, I would say.
Okay.
Still nothing crazy, and I think Thursday's the same case where it's 3 periods.
We're slowly getting there. Maybe we'll get a depth chart drill by the end of the week. That'd be nice.
One can dream. That'd be a dream for...
They had center snapping last week. That was something.
Yeah, that was something. And again, they had they were in pads, so they were doing full work, but nothing 11-11 on it or anything like that. And I don't know if we're gonna get that this week with it being the first 3 periods, but hey, who knows? You could dream.
Well, we'll see. We're getting into some Major League Baseball coming up next because the season's officially not even a week old. A lot has happened over the course of the first weekend. We'll dive into that coming up next. Speaking of baseball, with Gamecocks back in action tonight, your next chance to win the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway, $350 in the pot. Go online to 1075thegame.com if you've not registered already to sign up for the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you on your Tuesday. Happy April Fool's Day here on The Game.
When it comes to HVAC replacements, AAA Heating and Air has your back. They offer guaranteed financing, 12 months with no payments or interest, and a 15-year warranty on parts and labor. So if you need a new system, they're the best in the Midlands. But what if you don't need a replacement? What if you need just a repair? Good news for you. AAA Heating and Air has you covered there as well. They offer up to 12-month payment plans on repairs with no credit check for homeowners who need repairs. So all you need is just to have a valid bank account, and they'll handle the rest. So whether you need a repair or a replacement, AAA Heating and Air has unbeatable options. So you can give a call today and get your comfort back.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you here on your Tuesday on the game. Congrats to those of you that won your tickets to Tartan Day South this upcoming weekend. Forgot to mention this a moment ago. Those tickets will be available at will call at the event. So you go up there, you give them your name, and you'll get your tickets there. We will not be emailing you those to you like we normally do. So again, congratulations to those. We'll have more of those tickets to give away as the day does go along. Want to talk some Major League Baseball now, as we are not even a full week into the season officially. And Jack, the Braves are struggling. They are 0-5. They got swept by the Padres in 4 games. Lost last night to the Dodgers 6-1. In the past 27 innings, the Braves have had just 10 hits and scored 1 run. That came last night. Things not looking good for the Braves right now.
There's nothing worse than a West Coast trip to open the year, and you're facing 2 of the better teams in baseball. That is
The defending champions and the teams that knocked you out last year in the Padres.
Yep. It's tough sledding. And it's a very small sample size. It's 0-5 to start a year. It's not ideal. I'm sure the Braves are probably going to have to call a team meeting here soon if they lose another game. And look, the Dodgers are 6-0 right now. They've been unbelievable so far this year. But it's 5 games into a 162-game stretch. And, you return home on Friday, and that's where you hope to really get it going here. But you got 2 more games here to go against the Dodgers, and you really do hope you can win at least 1 game, but we'll see.
Well, and things didn't get any better for them yesterday afternoon when Jurickson Profar, one of their offseason acquisitions from the Padres, tested positive for a banned substance, has now been suspended 80 games, which will take him through the halfway point of the season. He's eligible to return on June 29th, but when he does return, he will not be eligible for postseason play at all. So, again, a guy you went out there and spent money on, who was your leadoff hitter. Oh, by the way, through 5 games now, didn't play yesterday, obviously, he's your leading hitter with a 200 batting average. You've lost him for half the season. In addition to guys that are already injured, you've lost one of your pitchers for 2 weeks. You're still waiting on Acuna to come back, Spencer Strider to come back. I know the season can't end in April, but it's not looking good right now.
No, this is about as bad as it can get for Braves fans, and it's rough, man. I mean, look, you brought in Profar thinking, he's coming off a very good season.
Like his best season ever, which now you say, okay, that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, his career has kind of been a little bit of a not very good, but last year was very solid for him, and that's what you were hoping to get out of him, more production. But he's 32. I mean, taking a banned substance is. And he said he didn't know that he took PEDs, but
they're all going to say that.
That's what they all say. Deny. But with Profar here, man, this is the worst possible thing that can happen. He gets to come back June 29th, like you said, but he misses postseason play.
Well, and here's the thing: when he comes back, assuming he's not taking this banned substance anymore, how good of a player is he? Because again, last year his numbers ticked up significantly, and that's why the Braves want to go out and get him. Was that because of the PED? If he's coming back and he's clean, is he as good of a player as you hoped he was going to be?
Yeah, and the other thing is, how's he going to look coming off an 80-game suspension? Like, I'm sure he'll go down to, I think he's from Curacao, so I'm sure he'll go to, play in like some league or something out there if that's allowed. I don't know.
I don't know if that's allowed or not.
I don't know if it's not MLB affiliated, so I don't know exactly, but it'll be very interesting to see how he looks when he comes back. But by that point, he's listed as a left fielder. I know he could play literally anywhere in the field. Acuna will be back by then, right?
Acuna, he should be back here, I think, within the month, I want to say.
Man, don't even sweat it. Like, again, he'll be a forgotten memory by that point with Profar here.
It just compounds to what's been a frustrating first couple of games for the Braves. On the opposite side of things couldn't be better for the Yankees right now. They are leading the league in almost every statistical category when it comes to offense, and a lot of that has to do seemingly with the torpedo bats. Now, I read the deep dive into this and how exactly the guy from NIT Learhart came up with this, and really, it's almost shocking that this hasn't been done before, because woodbat technology hasn't really come a long way in 100+ years.
No.
And this guy's like, hey, what if we redistributed the weight to make it, when you do make contact, the ball goes farther? And obviously it's working for the Yankees. We've seen other teams acquire it. Ellie De La Cruz last night hit 2 homers for the Reds with this thing. It's going to be league-wide here in a very, very short period of time. And, again, it's obviously paying dividends for the Yankees early on in the season.
You mentioned other teams are using this. I'm very glad you said that because I cannot stand the fact of ever since this really became a phenomenon after the first game of the season for the Yankees, because the Yankees broadcasting network decided to display it and tell everyone, the world, that the Yankees are using these apparently cheating bats. I can't tell you how many times people are
cheating.
Yeah, contrary to popular belief out there, whether it's Yankee haters or whatever the case might be, these bats are indeed legal and they are not breaking any rules here in the rule book. So they are legal, and I can't tell you how many times I saw that, oh, my God, the Yankees are cheating again. Oh, this is so illegal. They should be suspended, banned, whatever. Like, come on. Like, it's perfectly legal. And it's 2 hitters on the team that are using it. Aaron Judge isn't using it. Yeah, he's hitting the ball over the field. It's only Jazz Chisholm and Anthony Volpe. So
I appreciate ingenuity.
Yes.
This is not a court. These are not bats that you've put something inside of to make the ball go farther.
No.
You simply re-engineered what you had in front of you. And again, the guy from MIT that was working with the Yankees on this really looked at the bat and said, how can we make this better? So again, he's working within the sandbox of what is allowed. And my biggest thing is, because again, this is going to be league-wide here very soon. Pretty much every team's inquired about these, and they'll have their hands on them before too long. How does Major League Baseball handle this? Because I feel like the trigger reaction is going to be to ban this, right? Say, oh, hold on, we got to get a handle on this. We don't know what's going on. We don't want teams using these too much to their advantage. Let's ban it. Baseball is a game that's more fun when there's offense, right?
Yes.
A couple years ago, they had the juiced baseballs that were flying out a little bit easier, and they got rid of those, and then suddenly you're just back into pitchers' duels and all that kind of stuff. And I appreciate good pitching, but if baseball wants to continue to grow, and they've done good things the past couple of years, the pitch clock, banning the shifts and all that kind of stuff that have moved the needle in the right direction, this is something that has happened organically. You didn't have to make a rule change for it. It's just happened, and you're seeing home runs flying left to right because of this around the league. You got to embrace this. If you're Rob Manfred, don't ban these things. Don't be dumb and say, okay, well, we see these guys are having fun. Let's put a stop to that. This is an opportunity to grow the game, to appeal to a younger crowd that you desperately need to get in, that the NFL and the NBA have a stranglehold on. This is a good thing. Don't get rid of it.
Yes, there's been so much chatter about these torpedo bats. I think I've read so many different. I've seen so many articles just about this stuff alone, and it's good for the game. Look, it's not breaking any rules. Number one, because the bat, diameter, the length, or the width of it is not that much. It doesn't break any rules. It doesn't go past a certain point, which I think is 2.61 inches. So it's fine from that standpoint. And if they were to say, okay, it's no longer going to be allowed. Well, why are you doing that? It's not like they were breaking any rules to begin with. They're playing smarter, not harder, and they're not the only team doing this. You mentioned Ellie De La Cruz last night, using it for the first time and hitting 2 home runs. There are other guys around the league that are using it, but because it's the Yankees and because 2 guys are using it and they were hitting all these home runs against the Brewers the other day, that's why it becomes so popularized now, and to a point where, look, could they get rid of it? Yes, but I don't see the point in it. It's like getting rid of the sticky stuff that was cheating right there. When guys are using substances to get a better grip on the ball.
When you're using a substance or something to manipulate the piece of equipment or the baseball, that is going too far. But again, this is just somebody that rethought the way a bat was designed. Didn't add anything to it. Didn't take anything away from it. Just literally moved the weight around.
Yeah, it's fine. Look, it's no different than having a really heavy bat in general to swing and try to hit the ball farther, right? It's not. It's wood. How much can you really change wood? You're not corking the bat or anything. You're just moving the weight to the barrel where you're going to be able to make the most contact.
Yeah, again, I'm all for it, and I hope Major League Baseball doesn't do what I fear Major League Baseball will do and say, that's too much fun. Let's get rid of that because, again, it's sweeping Major League Baseball already just a week into the season so far. The Athletics, oh boy. The Athletics. They started their first series at their new home in Sacramento, and there's a lot of things to talk about from that. We'll hit that coming up next to wrap up our number one of the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you on your Tuesday here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Ed and Jack Belcher along with you here on your Tuesday on The Game. Want to let you know coming up in the 10 o'clock hour for today's Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Chris Clark sitting down with Mike Smith and David Busey from Gamecock Football. Hear from those guys and see how their spring practice has gone so far. Obviously, Mike Smith is out with an injury as of right now, but we'll get his thoughts on this upcoming season and how his freshman year went as well. While we're talking about Major League Baseball, the Oakland Athletics starting their first year venturing away from the city of Oakland. Actually, I can't call them the Oakland Athletics anymore. Nope. They're actually just the Athletics. I figured, at least in the short term, maybe they'd adopt the name of Sacramento, but no, they are actually just now the Athletics on ESPN, on the bottom ticker. When you're watching games, there is no city affiliated with this team. They're just the Athletics now.
Oh, no, but yeah, no Sacramento A's. But don't forget, on the left field wall out there, just everywhere else in the ballpark, their new home, a minor league stadium, Las Vegas is plastered everywhere. What a joke that is to be able to. You don't want to adopt the Sacramento name for the next 3 seasons.
I know. It's not a one-year thing.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to be here a while.
Yeah, but yet you got Vegas on your sleeve. You have a Vegas patch on your sleeve, and you have Vegas stuff plastered everywhere, man. It's so bad. It's a terrible situation. And the ballpark last night, man, and the game too, rough. So
they're playing at Sutter Health Park in West Sacramento. It's going to be their home for the next 3 seasons, as you said, before they officially move in to Las Vegas. Like, couldn't they have worked something out with the Vegas 51s, which is a minor league team out there, and played in their ballpark or something like that, and go ahead and make the move? I don't know. Regardless, it's a franchise. It's been a laughingstock for a long time, and they will continue to be that. Last night, they got drugged by the Cubs 18-3 to open up their new ballpark, so things aren't exactly looking up as of right now. And just to add on to this, I saw this yesterday. Their press conference setup is like an equipment shed outside of the park. Like, literally, it's a shed. It's got double doors on it, and they just got guys packed in there with cameras and stuff like that for their, I guess, pre- and post-game availabilities. It looks like it's seriously like the worst setup I've ever seen. Like, it's literally a shed, a makeshift shed with a plastic-looking roof. I mean, it's just, how is this a major league facility? I get it. Like, you're playing at a minor league ballpark. It's very hard to make a minor league facility look super professional. Though, apparently they've done a good job with, like, the clubhouse and stuff. And I think the attendance there looks pretty good. They can hold a decent amount of people. I was going to say, you're also talking about, what, a fourth of the capacity of a major league ballpark? Yeah. But also, from a media stand, I would hate to cover the A's, man. Like, I mean, look, I'd love to cover baseball someday, but covering the A's right now must be awful, because not only is that press conference set up terrible, one other thing to think about here, minor league press boxes are just not like MLB. Yeah. It must be so tightly packed in that press box in Sacramento, because, look, going to Columbia, Segra Park right here, that's a tight press box. Going to Charlotte, that's a small press box. I mean, I can't imagine. Well, it's much better. They're not built for tons of media to be there, because you don't typically have a lot of media following minor league teams, but you do and you're going to have for the next 3 years. Yes. Because guess what? You're going to have every Major League Baseball team coming in there at some point. Imagine when the Yankees come in there, or the Dodgers, or any big-time team that is going to outdraw A's fans. I mean, it's just a really bad situation. Would the Coliseum really have been that much worse for 3 more seasons? I don't, like, you put all that money into updating Sacramento's ballpark. Why not do that a little bit here with the A's for a few more years? And the A's fans showed you last year when they packed the place out in the reverse boycott that it's not the fans that's the problem. It's obviously the management and the way they run the team, where they don't put a competitive team on the field. They've been the lowest in payroll. I've lost count at how many years now. Yeah. And if you're not willing to pay for talent to make the team good, fans aren't going to care about it. Yeah, I know. John Fisher is a terrible owner and has been for some time. That's why you had sell the team chance last night. Just because you left Oakland does not mean the chance do not continue. It's the same guy at the top. And it's so tricky. And I feel so bad for the people of Oakland, because they pretty much lost every single team at this point. But, like, you're taking a team to Las Vegas where you aren't going to have an established fan base there. the majority of the people coming to watch games are probably going to be people visiting from out of town because, hey, we're playing a weekend series in Vegas. Let's go down there and hang out for a couple days. You're not going to have the ravenous fans that you once had in Oakland, much like the Raiders.
It just feels very corporate, these decisions that they're making and stuff. And it's just, I don't know. Like, it's such a weird gimmick that this year there are two teams playing in minor league ballparks. I mean, the Rays are
the Rays is different. They were forced into that.
And that's a high-class facility out there at Steinbrenner Field. Like, the Yankees have done a good job of making that as professional as possible. But, man, the A's, it looked like a good crowd last night. But it looked very, very cheesy at times, I will say.
It's fitting that the one major league team that is probably on par with a minor league team is now playing in a minor league ballpark.
Such a rich history, man. So many championships, and this is what the A's have become. It's a disaster.
It's lame. Don't call them Oakland. They are now just the Athletics.
Just the Athletics.
That'll do it for the Extra Point. Coming up next, Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating with Mike Smith and David Busey from Gamecock Football here on The Game.
And welcome in. It's the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating here on the game. Chris Clark driving this thing around for you for a little while today, and going to be talking, as we have been over the last couple weeks here, to some Gamecock football athletes, which always excited to do. And first couple segments today, we're going to be chatting with Michael Smith from South Carolina football, tight end going into year 2. And Mike, appreciate you taking time to join me, man. How's everything going?
It's going good. I appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for making time out of your busy schedule to do this. First of all, let's go ahead and hit this right off the top. I mean, Coach Beamer mentioned, I know the team's locked into spring ball. He mentioned at the beginning of the spring you weren't going to be going through spring ball, so you don't have to go into detail or anything, but how you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Like, if it was up to me, I'd still be out there, but I'm not trying to rush anything, trying to take every precaution. So I'm feeling great. Rehab going smooth. So, I just can't wait to be out there now.
Yeah, good deal, man. Well, glad to hear you're doing well. So we got a lot of ground to cover with you, and the first thing I want to do is just kind of, look back on last season, because true freshman, you were able to play a bunch of snaps as a true freshman for a team that, had some upperclassmen at tight end as well, and Josh Simon and Brady Hunt and some other guys obviously on this roster, Maurice Brown, et cetera. And you were able to break through as a true freshman and play some ball for this club. So, how did that feel, just kind of transitioning from the high school level all the way up to the SEC and being able to play in your first year?
It felt great. Like, going into, fall camp, I was like, man, my main goal is, like, I want to play. And that was specialty is cool, but, like, I want to get that ball. But it felt great. Like, I felt like everything paid off. Like, it was smooth.
Yeah. So, I mean, what was the biggest transition for you? You obviously played, I mean, for those that don't know, you played at a high school in Savannah, and, like, you played with a bunch of D1 guys. You play against a bunch of guys, a bunch of schools that had Division I talent. So you were used to it from that standpoint, but, you step up to the SEC. It's not just some guys are D1 or some guys are SEC caliber. It's all of them, right? So, I mean, what was the biggest, like, was there something you could point to that was maybe the biggest, adjustment that you had to make going to that level?
Blocking, man.
Yeah.
High school, like, every now and then I block, like, somebody like that's like that. Like,
yeah.
Feel me? But, like, it's like I got here and it's like everybody's like that. And, like, I ain't had to block that many consistent dudes like that. So it was something new, and I wasn't used to it just yet.
Yeah. Well, I remember, so I came down to Savannah the day that you announced your commitment to South Carolina out of high school. And I remember, I don't think it was that day. It was another interview, and you were talking to my colleague, Wes, who's on works with me at Gamecock Central, who's on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour here on the game with me. And, he was talking about your pass catching skill, and you're like, oh, I like to block too. You kind of reminded us about that.
Yeah, like, I can block. I do it. Like, yeah. I ain't got a problem doing it, but it's like sometimes them dudes be some dudes, and it's like, hey, let's put the ball. Let's throw me a ball a little bit, just switch it up a little bit.
You got to keep them honest. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, man, I feel like when you play for Sean Elliott, who is, he spent a lot of his career as an O-line coach and a run game coordinator and like a big run game guy. I feel like he it's probably not optional to be in his room and block, right? Like you got to do it, right?
Yeah, if we might watch some film, and even if, like, the Tiger might not even do nothing on the rep, it's like, all right, now let's talk about this defensive front. How would you block? Like, you're going to learn something. Even if it's nothing to learn, you're going to learn something.
Well, what is, I mean, I'm always fascinated to talk to guys who play for Elliott because, I mean, just obviously his energy level, and he's a Gamecock guy through and through, back here for the second time as a coach. But, what really stands out about his style, or maybe what are some of the, biggest takeaways you've had being coached by him?
Man, his passion, like,
yeah.
If it's anything, like, he gonna coach you. Like, it really gotta be hard. He gonna talk to you. Like, man, you gonna hear what he trying to tell you, and like he gonna be passionate about it. Like once you do it, it's like he gonna let you know, like, yeah, you did that one, but like if you don't do it, he gonna let you know that too. So it's like you just gotta, as long as you can match his energy to a sense, like you'll be fine. But you gotta match his energy, and that's kind of hard to do.
Now, does he still do the pregame, like, I don't even know how to describe it. You know, when he was a head coach and when he was an O-line coach, he would like to kind of like a little mosh pit before the games. Like, does he still get y'all all riled up? Yeah.
Yeah. Like everybody else said they're locked in, and here he comes. Yeah. It's just a matter of when he comes. So it's just once he's in there, like they go the energy right there. Now it's time. It's go time now.
Are you kind of on the, like, you trying to do your thing on the sideline before the game? Are you kind of keeping an eye, like a little side eye, trying to look out for him barreling towards you or something? Like, are you kind of having to be a little bit aware? Because, man,
yeah, you got to be aware because you got to wait for his, like, pregame is like he ready for the game. Once the ball get kicked off, he calmed down a little bit. So you got to watch out for him until that ball get kicked off.
So I want to give you he's not here anymore, obviously, because he got a head coaching job, but I want to give you a chance to shout out Coach Jody Wright because the head guy at Murray State now, but I know he had a big hand in recruiting you here, and we've had him actually on the show since he got to Murray. I feel like everybody loves Coach Jody Wright. Like, how big of a factor was he in your recruiting process back then?
Man, that was my dog. Like, after every game, it was like, let me tell Jody that I had 3 touchdowns again. Like, you know, it was just like, let me keep him up there. And like Jody was like, he was my dog, man. Like he was helping me. Like if I had a question, he didn't even hesitate to like let me know. Like the communication, you felt the love from him just through phone calls and like just coming to my school and visits. Like we was just talking. We could just talk. It didn't even have to be about football or just recruiting anything. It was just we was talking.
Well, I know, you know, one thing, when you committed to South Carolina, you know, committed pretty early from what I remember, but man, other schools did not give up. Like, I remember you had Auburn, I remember you had Tennessee, and like, not trying to say anything to try to get you in trouble or anything, but like, was it ever like kind of like, did it get a little bit like hairy and then for you? Like, cause I know you took some other visits and things like that. They kind of had you thinking a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. It wasn't even thinking. Like, I just wanted to go to games. I just wanted to, like, Auburn. I was like, yeah, let me start talking to Auburn because I wanted to go to that Iron Bowl game. Like, what was it? 4th and forever when they just like I just wanted to go to that game like that. And Tennessee and Bama, I was like, yeah, like Jake still talked to Tennessee. Like, hey man, let me come to the game. Like, you know, that was all it was. I wanted to go to a couple of games.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, yeah, I you know, I kind of got the sense that, you know, people were worried around here, but I kind of got the sense you seemed pretty locked in. But I mean, at the same time, man, like, you only get to go through that process, the high school process, once, you know? Yeah. So is that kind of how you looked at it? Like, man, I got to like go enjoy this part of it.
Yeah, it was just like I locked in January of 2023 and like I ain't go nowhere except for my OV to Carolina. I was like, man, let me go to a couple of games like before like I can't do this anymore.
That's right.
Let me take a couple more visits, like just soak it in real quick.
Well, let me ask you this. So like nowadays we've got the transfer portal era, which even when guys hit the transfer portal, that's a different recruiting process, you know, than high school because it's so like condensed. It's like if guys enter the portal, it's like even more of a business decision, I feel like, because you're trying to go get developed like quickly. But how do you kind of, you know, you're going into year 2 here, like when you're just kind of assessing, you know, right, you didn't start last year, right? But you had some guys in front of you. You're going to have a great opportunity to play. Like, how do you go through each off season? And you've only had, you know, this is really your first like off season after a actual football season. Like, how do you assess things of like, okay, I need to be happy where I'm at. I need to go get my opportunity, as opposed to like, oh, I wonder if the grass is greener. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I feel like it honestly like depends on the type of person, because I like to compete. So it's like I have no problem competing for a spot, because if I'm gonna show my best, and I don't know, who knows, like somebody else's best might be better than mine, but that that season, like just the starting lineup at the beginning of the season isn't gonna be the same starting lineup at the end. Like compete, like it's always competition. So I feel like if I can outcompete, I can get there. So I feel like it just depends on the type of person you are. Like before you get in the portal, like grass might be greener, but that don't, you know, you might not see that brown spot through the picket fence or whatever, you know?
Yeah, that's definitely a good way to put it, man. So, all right, we're going to take a quick timeout. And back on the other side, we're going to look back a little bit more on Mike Smith's freshman season here at Carolina. And then, of course, look forward to 2025 in year two and all that's coming here in the near future. So we'll take a quick timeout and be back. More with Michael Smith here on the Gamecock Club Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. If you are looking for a reliable local roofing company to help your home or business with your roofing needs, check out our friends at Classic Roofing. Joe Reeder, Max Sawyer, our guys, friends of the program here. They can help you take good care of your roof. That can be challenging, but you don't have to do it alone. They have years of expertise under their hats. They're a local company. Again, their families live right here in the Midlands, and the guys at Classic Roofing are GAF certified roofers. Only about 7% of roofers nationwide even have that certification. They can do inspections, installations, replacements, and repairs on your roof. You can visualize your new roof and what it would look like at classicroofingsc.com. You can check out their reviews and get a free estimate there. classicroofingsc.com, or give them a call, 803-590-7870. That's the reliable roofers over at Classic Roofing. All right, I'm back here. Chris Clark. You're listening to the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Hanging out here with Mike Smith from Gamecock Football, going into year 2. So let's look back a little bit more, Mike, on season 1, and how do you feel like you grew from you were telling us earlier your biggest adjustment from high school to the SEC level was blocking, right? But I'm sure you had a lot of growth just from like game 1 to the Clemson game, or even developing throughout bowl season or whatever it may have been on and off the field, right? So how did you see yourself grow the most throughout the course of your freshman year?
Being able to, be in more positions, because, beginning of the season, it was more so like I'm going in only in 12 personnel to be that F receiver. I feel like towards the end of the season, I was more comfortable taking like those Y reps and like those attached to the ball tight end reps. Like I was able to do more. And honestly, I ain't gonna lie, I came from just watching Josh, like just the way he, developed his body, the way he treated his body, and like the steps he took. I don't know, his tight end stay, like simple things like that. Just watching him, how he did it. So I was just kind of took out the way he did.
Yeah, that was you actually read my mind, stole my next question. I was going to ask you, what you learned from Josh, who, did quite well for himself at the NFL Combine. Brady Hunt, man, another guy who, actually, like you, he was in his first season at Carolina this past year, but he's a guy who's been around college ball for a while. So are there any other, big picture things that maybe you didn't mention that you learned from Josh that you took away from, just working with those guys and being in the room with them?
It's a lot I took from Josh. Like I honestly kind of stole his whole bag, and it was like, I'm still learning from the guys in the tight end room. Like Brady, the way, Brady and Josh, they've been around for a while, so it's like, they know more than me. So if they ask a question, I'm like, okay, that's a good question I need to write down. Or if Brady says something in a meeting, or Josh or whoever says something that was like that made more sense to me than like, you feel me, like the way coach might be explaining it, I would write that down, because hey, I was still 18, and I don't know, Josh was almost 40, so he knew more than he knew more than me, so I was just taking notes. So
I love how subtle that was. He's almost 40. It's kind of true though. My guy's been around a while. No, we love Josh though. Yeah, that's a funny guy and a heck of a football player. So, this year you mentioned last year, the growth, the blocking, being able to play more positions from a versatility standpoint. What do you think the next step is in 2025? Obviously, you've got to, get you back on the field, get you back healthy this summer and into preseason camp. But what do you see as, next step for Mike Smith?
Honestly, I want to be on the field as much as possible. If they go 10 personnel, I'm still out there, but just as a receiver, I just want to. I want to find it back to as comfortable as I was in high school. Not trying to because it's 2 completely different ball games, but I want to get back to that level, being on the field first through fourth down, just always on the field.
From what you've seen so far, and obviously, again, for those who didn't hear in the first segment or hadn't heard Coach Beamer throughout this spring, Mike's not going to be participating in spring ball. Be back and good to go for the 2025 season, though. But what have you seen from Coach Shula's offense so far? If you could can you find a way to maybe describe it, or what are your overall impressions of the style there?
It's more advanced. I see more not really advanced. It's more broken down than I feel like it's more that can be done. It's that creative gene can get active and that playbook, and it's gonna be, hey, we're gonna do something with that one. That's all without saying too much, we're gonna do something with that.
So one of the big storylines going into the spring was this receiver group, right? And I think a lot of kind of a lot of storylines, even subplots within that, because you've got some guys returning, right? Like Nick Harbor, Jared Brown, Dre, Mazio Bennett, et cetera. But you've also got a group of, 6 receiver signees, 5 of them are on campus. And man, we've been hearing some pretty good things about the young freshman wide receivers. What do you see from that room so far when you've been observing this spring?
Man, I feel like you can't go wrong. Like it's some great competition going on. You feel me? And I feel like everybody just doing their thing. Like everybody look comfortable, everybody flying around, and everybody making plays. Like you can't. It's not a bad thing that you can really mention about any of them. Like they are some dogs, and they showing that they are some dogs.
One of the themes that Coach Beamer has talked about, and I've heard a lot of the players talking about it too, so it's pretty clear that it's been discussed a lot and it's kind of sticking in y'all's minds, but this idea of going farther, right? Like y'all had a really good, really strong year last season. Obviously, we're very close to the college football playoff, but trying not to be, I guess, complacent in that and trying to take things further. What does that, when you hear that message from Coach Beamer and the staff, what does that mean to you, and how do you take it, as a player to try to apply it to your prep?
As a player, that's just I see it as not getting comfortable. Like, like, okay, we went 9-3, but like that was last year's team. Like, what can this year's team do? Like, just because I was on that team don't mean like we going 9-3 again. Like, what can this team do to go? You feel me? Farther, like, do better, be better, like, and that just breaks it down to like every individual. Like, don't get comfortable with where you at. Like, just because you start, like, it's always somewhere you can improve or more that can be done. Like, you gotta improve. There's always room for improvement. You feel me? Gotta fill up that space.
You've had so far some really good descriptions of, maybe your teammates, whether it's individual guys, Josh Simon's age, making fun of that, or or some other players. But so I have to get your take on a couple guys. How do you describe watching some of the stuff that Lenore Sellers does on the football field?
This spring, man, like I said, we always compete. So, like, there's been some controversial sack calls in practice because I definitely see Lenore's getting out of those pockets. Like, just honestly, like in game, I question what he does sometimes because I remember if I can take it back, Vanderbilt game, I had an arrow route and I turned around to see a linebacker come clean, like untouched. And I'm like, oh yeah, plays that. And I just see Lenore stand back up and throw a 40-yard pass down the field. And I'm just like, okay, cool. Like, I get that's my quarterback. Like, all right, I got you.
Yeah. It's almost like you would kind of rather some of those plays not happen because, I mean, even Lenoris will get sacked sometimes on those, but it's like, if you can do that, cool. Like, not many guys can do that stuff.
And it's like right after play, I'm like, yeah, that's going on the highlight reel. So it's just like, you look back on it and it's just like, hey, bro, that was crazy. Do you know what you just did? He'd be like, nah, bro, I just got to like, it just happens. Like, I don't even think he'd be planning that. Like, yeah, I'm going to flip this dude off the top of my shoulder.
Oh, he's so nonchalant about it.
Yeah, and then like, you feel me, flip the ball, come back. I'm like, bro, do you realize what you just did? Like,
it's crazy. All right, so what about Dylan Stewart? Have you ever had to try to block him in practice one-on-one? Talking about blocking.
I try to come to a truce with Dylan. He don't really listen, but like, it's like blocking him. I'm just like hoping he trying to work new moves or something, but it usually don't end too pretty. But like, I'm on that now, so it's like, you feel me? Fall camp, like I want all that. So,
hey, that's a good way to improve. Try to block him, there's no doubt. Yeah, I mean the get off is crazy. It's all crazy. So, all right, Mike, let's go off the field a little bit. Last minute or so here. What do you like to do away from ball? You got any hobbies or anything?
I'm trying to find more things to do. Like, I'm on campus a lot now. Like, just walking around. Like, I might not have class. Like, this past Thursday, I can have class, but Jalewis, he had a speech class, and I just wanted to see his speech, so I just sat in his class and just watched his speech. Like, why not? It's just like, it's a lot of things that can be done. Like, it's a lot of buildings I haven't been in, a lot of events I haven't attended. So I'm just trying to find more to do. But other than just trying to find things, I'm usually at home just like playing the game. It's not really much going on. I'm trying to stay out of as much trouble. That's usually what I'm told before I leave a building. Like, stay out of trouble. don't get tired of doing what's right. So
Yeah, you 2K or Call of Duty, what you got going?
I'm usually on 2K, but nobody, you feel me? I play 2K with Lewis, but he's not the best. So I'm just waiting for him to improve before like we get back on that.
Well, how did he do on his speech? Did he get an A from you? I don't know what he got from his teacher.
From me, like he hit every point. Like I feel like it was. If I was a teacher, I give him a 93. He stuttered twice. Like I ain't gonna. I'm gonna take some points off of that. But other than that, it was a good little speech.
That probably made him nervous, man, that you came and watched him.
And honestly, that classroom had at least like 7 people at most. Not at most 10 people, at least 6. Like it wasn't that many people in there. So,
all right, awesome. Well, Mike, hey, I appreciate you taking time to hang out with me today, man. Wishing you all the best as you continue to get healthy. Can't wait to see what you got in store for year 2 if we don't talk to you before then. But thanks for hanging out with me today, man.
I appreciate that, man. Appreciate you for having me.
All right, that's Mike Smith from Gamecock Football. You're listening to the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. More with Gamecock athletes on the other side.
If you're out there looking for a local, reliable HVAC service for your home or your business in the Midlands, reach out to our friends over at Krantz Cooling and Heating, KrantzCooling.com, Krantz, cooling with a K, KrantzCooling.com, or give Justin Krantz, the general manager over there, and his team a call, 803-755-0793. I've had Krantz Cooling out to my home several times. They did a mini split for me in the garage. They've checked out all the other units at my house to make sure they're running in tip-top shape. Love my experience so much that when my mom moved to Irmo, I got them to go out to her home too. They put in 2 mini splits for her. They handle all her HVAC needs as well. They could do the same for you. KrantzCooling.com or 803-755-0793. Since 1983, Krantz Cooling, their team has been providing great service to business owners and families in the Midlands. They can do the same for you.
And welcome in back at the Gamecock Club Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Chris Clark, hanging out, profiling, and talking with some Gamecock football athletes. You heard from Mike Smith in the last segment, had fun hanging out with him. And now we turn the page. We got someone from defense, David Busey, excited to talk with him, another guy heading into year 2 with the Gamecocks. David, appreciate you taking time to join us, man.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, hope everything's going well with you. In the midst here of spring ball in year 2, first of all, how you feeling? I know you got several practices down. The pads are on. How you feeling physically and mentally right now?
Physically, I'm feeling good. This past spring, put on a couple pounds. Mentally, I think I got a better grasp of the playbook, so everything's coming along pretty smooth right now.
Yeah, so let's go back to year 1, or actually let's go back all the way to the recruiting process. You were a guy that actually you were recruited by the same guy that recruited Mike Smith, who I just talked to. You guys played at different high schools, but you're both from Savannah. I know Coach Jody Wright was really involved in your recruiting. He's now at Murray State, but what do you remember about the recruiting process? What did you like? What did you maybe dislike? And how do you look back on all that right now?
Jody was definitely a big part. He was one of my favorite people that recruited me. He's guy's a trick, definitely a character. But I think the recruiting really didn't pick up until I went to that camp, and that summer camp I did pretty good then. And then after that, I also did good at that 7-on-7. After that is when it really picked up. I think the first game that I went to was Texas A&M in 20 something. I can't remember, but it was the one where Leggett took that first kickoff to the house.
Yep.
First play. And after going to that, I was hooked on the atmosphere and that feeling ever since that play.
Tell us about your high school development. I know you played, some receiver at your high school. Obviously, you played DB. Where did you tell us about just kind of starting out playing football? Have you always played both sides of the ball? When did you start playing? Just take us back a ways there.
I did. I played. Funny, I played center. I think the first position I played was snapping the ball. But I did play both sides growing up. 8U, all that stuff, 10U. I've always played linebacker. That's what my dad did in college. So just following his footsteps and stuck with that all the way out high school. And I think I really figured out towards sophomore, junior year that I'd probably be playing some sort of safety and not linebacker, some sort of defensive back at the next level. But yeah.
Well, when did you have to give up center? Because you're a bigger guy right now, but I'm gonna go out on a limb. You're not that close to center size. When did you have to? All right, yeah, I don't think I'll be a center or any kind of offensive lineman.
I think that was probably after that 8U stage right there.
Okay, so pretty early.
Yeah.
What do you miss? I've seen your high school tape on offense. You definitely made some plays. Do you miss playing wide receiver, or you not even really think about that anymore?
Yeah, I definitely think about it a lot. There's nothing like scoring in high school and catching a deep ball, just throwing it up. But yeah, I definitely do think about it.
So, one of the things that it has always struck me about Torian Gray, who's your coach now here at South Carolina, is he seems to have a knack for getting guys ready to play early. And when I say that, obviously you deserve a lot of credit for being able to go out and play some snaps on defense and play special teams. DQ Smith and Nikem Nwori, as freshmen in 2022, they both came out and played a ton. They deserve a lot of credit. But there's a long list of guys that Torian has, helped to get on the field as true freshmen. And obviously Coach D. Camillus, too, playing special teams for him. But what is it about Torian Gray that just makes him so effective as a DB coach?
He's really really pays attention to the details. He says a lot. You're only as strong as your weakest your weakest players. So he's all about bringing up the younger guys, getting them ready to play, like you said. And he focuses on the whys and making sure we understand why we did something wrong or something right, and just teaching us the game.
So, as we were just talking about special teams year one, you obviously factored in pretty heavily. You made some big plays on special teams in year one. How different is playing special teams at the college level versus playing it in high school? And especially, I know you've only played for one college, so you only have the experience here, but man, it really seems like there's so much attention to detail and emphasis on special teams with Coach Joe D and Coach Beamer.
Yes, for sure. I mean, the jump from high school and college for defense and offense and special teams, anything is crazy. But the special teams, it shocked me how much, meeting times and breakdown, install, all that kind of stuff with Joe D. It's a lot different for sure.
I mean, do you feel like that is that kind of, I guess the best word is tangible? Like when you guys line up on the field on a Saturday, do you kind of come away feeling like all that meeting time like has prepared us? Like, do you feel like you can sense that out there, that you're more prepared than maybe some of the other teams from a special team standpoint?
Yes, sir, absolutely. I mean, sometimes you go out there and you know what's coming by formations, and that's, props to our coaches and staff and everybody, Joe D, Tim McConnell. I mean, they know what's up. They're experts at it, and they make us experts.
So let's move over to, the defensive side of the ball. And, with you coming in focusing strictly on, obviously, special teams, yes, but, it's not high school anymore. You're not playing, both sides of the ball with offense and defense. You're just focused on defense and out there playing safety. What were maybe some of the biggest adjustments for you that you had to learn, honing in on that position and then just honing in on playing defense in the SEC?
I had to work on my footwork a lot and, understanding balance and, getting my hips right, but also, looking at formations and understanding where I had to be, body positions, my eyes, really just, putting myself in the right spot to make a play. And I'd never done that in high school, really. I played a couple reps of safety, but I was just coming down and hitting somebody. But, thinking about leverage, my assignment on every play, it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot different.
Do you feel, I mean, one of the things you mentioned to start there was that you felt like you knew the defense a lot better. I mean, when you compare kind of, beginning of year one when you first came in versus, beginning of year two, having gone through an entire season, an entire off season with the team, can you even put a number like on just how much more comfortable you feel in the defense?
Last year, I guess I can say like scale 1 to 10. The last spring, probably knowing the playbook would probably be 5, 6.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like now I'm at that 8, 9, 10 level right now.
Yeah. Is that just kind of a reps thing? Like, hey, just knowing the playbook, but you actually go out there and it's not just, staring at a piece of paper, I guess an iPad for you guys, or, just pouring through the practice film, but like you actually have to go out there and execute it. And it's just the reps of it all.
Yeah. It's a combination of reps and walkthroughs, film, all that stuff.
What in your mind, you just gave us a great list there of things that, you had to adjust to from high school to college. But when you think about year two and making a jump and, I would presume probably playing more reps of actual defense at safety in year two, what are the kind of the next steps for you as a player, you think?
I think just like perfecting the safety position, being consistent in practices, having the right depth, right leverage on every play, just reaching for that perfection, getting better each practice, never going backwards.
All right, good stuff. David Busey hanging out with us from Gamecock Football. here on the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. We're going to take a quick timeout. Then we come back on the other side. We're going to go off the field, talk with David a little bit about what he likes to do when he is away from football, plus look ahead more to the 2025 season. We'll be right back. You're listening to The Game. All right, welcome back in. It's the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Last few minutes here with David Busey from Gamecock Football. And David, I teased it right there before the break. I know so much of your time is taking up playing the game of football in meetings. Obviously, you are a student athlete. You've got your academics, all that. But what do you like to do when you're away from football and get, a few spare hours here and there?
Away from football, hunting, fishing, being in the outdoors is my favorite thing to do for sure. Anytime I get the chance, I'll be in the woods. Like I said, hunting, fishing, just being outside. When I get some free time during the week, and the weekends, usually I'm hunting. At least hunt one time, at least during the week. Make sure I get all my schoolwork done before,
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Good of you to throw that in. What are you focused on in school as far as a major? And do you have any ideas about, what you might want to do once football's over, whenever that is?
My major is environmental studies, so right now I'm taking a lot of marine biology classes, a lot of stuff about policies, seawalls, all that kind of stuff, tides. I go on and on, but my dad is a wetland consultant. He does dock permits, flags wetlands, seawalls, like I said, culverts, all that stuff. So I think kind of following his footsteps, maybe taking over the business is something I'd like to do when football's over.
Oh, yeah, that's a pretty cool job, yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you like to go hunting and fishing. Let's kind of break those up. Can you give us your greatest hunting conquest? I think might be the best word. You got any good stories from out there in the woods?
Best hunting conquest. I think it'd have to be me and my buddies before school one day. We had a late start. It would be a Wednesday morning. Woke up and we shot 3 turkeys in a matter of like 30 seconds. It was pretty sweet.
Nice.
Came around the corner of the road and they came right into us. Shot them 5 yards, 3 for 3.
That's a good day. That's a good
yeah.
morning. All before school. Not
All
bad.
before school. Made it right in time for chapel.
What is there anywhere that you are like, man, I would, because I imagine you spend a lot of your time in obviously back home and in Georgia in the woods hunting, but is there any like big hunting, like the big one, like hunting trip that you've kind of dreamed of going off somewhere?
I wanted to go out west to duck hunt. My buddies did it last year, but something really that I've kept my eye on is my dad elk hunted a lot when he grew up, and that's during the football season. So one day I want to go elk hunting. Camp out, pack out the elk, all that stuff, the whole deal.
Yeah. I've got some buddies that have done some trips up to Canada, and they have some stories about doing all that. Sound pretty awesome to me. Mm-hmm. So, what about fishing? Like, are you more of are you like an offshore guy? Or you like just going to a lake and hitting some striper? Like, what do you like to do?
In Savannah, where I'm from, there's a lot of redfish, trout, flounder. Yeah. There's some stripers. My favorite thing to do is go after tarpon, and fly fishing too is a big thing for me. I like to get on the flat and get them tailing the redfish, and went to the Everglades last year and tarpon fish. Man, that place is unreal.
Yeah.
Tarpon are definitely some of the funnest fish to catch.
So obviously, I think if you got your eyes on maybe some hunting and fishing trips, but have you been anywhere cool on vacation? Just, spring break, like you gotten a chance to go, I don't know, hit a beach, go out of the country, anything like that to kick back and relax?
I did the Everglades last year. That was definitely one of my top ones ever. But only place outside I've been to Bermuda one time with my family. That place was sweet.
Yeah.
The water there was crazy. The fish everywhere. I did go to Mexico one time hunting. That place is crazy. It's just a whole bunch of nothing for miles and miles.
Yeah, it's good to do that sometimes. Get out with nothing because there's a lot around. So let's take it back to the field here. Last couple minutes with you, David, and one of the themes, and I asked Mike Smith about this. I've actually been asking all the players that we've talked to. Really, Coach Beamer's theme this year that he's really harped on is just going farther with this team. You guys did some great things last season, won 9 games, kind of right on the doorstep of the playoff, but he's talking about going farther. What have you guys, like, how are you individually, how are y'all as a team kind of thinking about the concept of going farther, and how do you go about accomplishing that?
I think the biggest emphasis is like how can you take yourself to the next level, like individually, to help the team out. So, what do you need to do individually to make yourself better every day? Keep yourself in check, do the right thing, don't get tired of doing what's right, and just making yourself better. And then, once everybody focuses on the individual things, it's gonna make everybody better. And then it's just grasping the whole concept of helping out the team. I think that's really what the main emphasis is.
All right, good stuff, David. Well, hey, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with us here on the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Schooling and Heating. Wishing you all the best as you go throughout spring ball and into the rest of the year, man. So thanks for your time. Appreciate you joining.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
All right, that's David Busey of Gamecock Football. It's Chris Clark here on the game. And up next, tune in. It's the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs.
And that was Chris's conversation with Mike Smith and David Busey for today's Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Of course, both those guys going into their second season with South Carolina. As Chris mentioned, as we know from Coach Beamer the other week, Mike Smith not going to be participating this spring, dealing with an injury. Of course, he came on the scene really strong last year right out of the gate, making an impact at the tight end spot. Obviously, with Josh Simon moving on to the NFL, that really opens up a door for him to get even more playing time this year, alongside Brady Hunt, Jordan Dingle, and the rest of that tight end room. David Busey, somebody at the safety spot that primarily played special teams a year ago, but somebody that Wes and Chris have talked about a lot, does have a potential upside where he could find his way onto the field a little bit more as well. As again, we're trying to figure out what that secondary looks like for this upcoming season. We'll dive into what those two guys had to say and a whole lot more, as well as get into the conversation that the assistant coaches had yesterday when speaking to the media about what they've seen so far through spring practice after a couple of weeks out there so far. So we'll dive into all that coming up next. But as we head into this break, tonight, Gamecock baseball back in action, trying to get back on the winning side of things. They take on Presbyterian over at Founders Park. I have one pair of tickets right now for caller number 4 at 803-404-6100. One-year pair of tickets to go see Gamecock baseball take on the Presbyterian Blue Hose over at Founders Park tonight at 7 o'clock. To caller number 4 at 803-404-6100. We'll dive back into the football conversation, as well as talk some basketball, too, coming up in the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Myself, Wes Mitchell, and Chris Clark on your Tuesday here on the game. 11 o'clock on your Tuesday morning. Welcome in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West, Chris, along with you here on your April Fool's Day. Anybody partaking any jokes so far this morning or tricks? Nothing?
No joking.
No? Chris?
My favorite, I've seen a lot of memes and different things going around that, like, you can't even fool anybody anymore. Things are so ridiculous right now that, like, you can't even come up with anything.
Yeah.
That would seem like you just be like, oh, that's probably real.
I feel like in today's world, especially with news and stuff like that, you see on Twitter, you should take everything with a grain of salt until you get confirmation from multiple outlets of something being true. So even the whole, hey, this fake headline or something like that fools people shouldn't be as prevalent now as maybe it once was.
Chris, was that your song or Tyler's?
That was mine.
That was Tyler.
That was fueled by
Although I co-sign, I approve.
Still noticing a lack of my songs.
I know, I agree.
I have all your stuff in our drive. Dave has to be the one that has to put it into the system.
Oh, it's Dave.
So I have to get Dave to do that, hopefully today. So I have your songs recorded. They are in there.
You recorded them?
Well, yes, I sang them all myself.
His own version.
I knew he could sing.
Covers.
I pulled the audio for your songs, and I'm working to get them into our system.
You know what it would have been a good April Fool's was to come back in with the K-pop, like to lead off the show.
Well, unfortunately, I deleted all that from our system, so it can never, ever infiltrate our show again. I guess I could have got it off YouTube or something like that.
Straight up deleted it.
Yeah. Anyways, happy April Fool's Day out there. Be careful what you read and where you're going because you never know what's going to be a joke. What's not a joke is obviously Gamecock football as spring practice rolls along. Chris, would you listen to your conversation with Mike Smith and David Busey in that last hour? Of course, both guys entering their second year here at Carolina. Unfortunately for Mike Smith, he is going to be sitting out the spring with his injury, but David Busey is somebody that played a lot of special teams a year ago, and the wide open DB room as of right now, somebody that is obviously vying for more playing time there.
Yeah, he got on the field a good bit as a true freshman, mostly on special teams, as you said, Tyler. But he showed some things, right? And so going into year two, there's actually a pretty decent size list of guys: Busey, Kelvin Hunter, Jalewis Solomon, guys, and at other positions that are going into year two that the staff's looking to take a step forward. And certainly when you look at safety. That's a position where you're losing Nick Emanwari. No, there's not another Nick Emanwari on the roster. There are no Nick Emanwaris just across the country. Like, they just don't exist. You kind of got to get back to regular person football, as Clayton White said. But Busey's one of those guys that you certainly expect to once again play a factor on special teams. But also, does he get a look at safety? Peyton Williams opposite DQ Smith has been, it seems like this spring so far, first man up, but they're going to be looking for some other guys to see the field too.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting when Torian Gray spoke last week, and, we've all kind of had this conversation for a while about, hey, is Kilgore going to move back to safety? And I kind of thought to an extent maybe the whole, right now he's at nickel. It was kind of what we were hearing at first. I was like kind of thinking emphasis on the right now. Like, ultimately, he may move back to safety. The more these guys have talked and the more we have heard, the more it seems like the staff legitimately would just like to have Jalen Kilgore stay at nickel. And so what does that mean? I thought it was interesting just listening to Torian last week. He didn't present this as being the depth chart. He didn't say, hey, this is in a particular order, but I actually think you can read between the lines. He goes, at safety, we've got DQ, we've got Peyton Williams. Those guys have played the most snaps for us right now. And so, lo and behold, if you ask around the program, the two guys that are working with the ones a lot are DQ and Peyton Williams. And then he says, then you've got David Busey. You've got Gerald Kilgore. So I think that's probably even if not by design, maybe even if it was just kind of Freudian, just kind of like, hey, this is – I feel like it was a decent indicator of where things are. Then he says, we put Kelvin Hunter back at – or we moved him to safety, basically. That's a new position for him. He was playing more of a nickelback role last year, so I think Kelvin playing a new position, there's going to be a transition period anyway. Probably in that next group, and then Kendall Daniels, of course, the true freshman that I think I speak for both of us. We both were really high on Kendall out of high school. I'm sure, swimming right now in terms of learning everything. And then you have Buddy Mack, who, came in as the transfer walk-on from Pitt, who played quite a bit of special teams last year and is also in that room and kind of in the mix in terms of depth. But, I think the question is just, all right, can Peyton Williams, or one of those other guys be not Nick Eamon-Worry, but can they be a solid SEC contributor for you?
Yeah, I think so. And I do think Peyton, when he's come in, we've talked about this before, when he's come in for Nick in the past, sometimes it's under just like not ideal circumstances. It's not, hey, you got to lead. We've seen some of that, right? But it's, hey, Nick went down early in the game with an injury. You're up,
Or he just decided not to play the second half.
Yeah, well, that also happened. Not ideal. But the point is, he's done some good things. And, man, what we know about Torian Gray, like, he gets his guys prepared. I mean, you can look at the track record here. You can look at the track record at Florida, at Virginia Tech. He spent some time in the NFL. He gets his guys ready. And you mentioned Buddy McWest. I actually talked to him yesterday for an interview we'll be rolling out probably next week on the Gamecock Club Hour. And he went into detail. Jalen Kilgore's talked to me about it. Judge Collier's talked to me about it here on shows here on the game. Just the attention to detail that Torian Gray has. He has a knack for getting guys ready to play early. He's got a knack for developing guys throughout their career. I was talking with Buddy Mack about Jalen Foster, who's also an upstate native. And Jalen went from walk-on to All-American, at South Carolina under Torian Gray. So it will look different, right? You're not going to have a unicorn running around out there anymore. But that's an advantage not many people have. South Carolina had that card that they could play last year, which is not a typical card to play. So even though you're going back to, regular person football, however you want to term it, you do have to find some guys. And I think there's going to be pretty good competition there. But Peyton Williams, so far, seems like has been kind of the lead guy there to take over that spot.
Well, speaking of finding guys, you mentioned we heard from Torian Gray last week, heard from a few other assistants yesterday, including Traven Robertson, of course, who oversees the defensive line for South Carolina, and he's dealing with the room that's having to replace a lot of talent that's going on and playing at the next level. And here is Coach Robertson talking about having to find replacements for all those guys that left this past offseason.
A lot different. Knowing that, you lost, the guys that we lost, and you had 2 years with them. And but it's good. It's part of football. Guys come here, they leave, they come and leave. So it's been different. We miss Tonka, we miss TJ, we miss Boogie, but it's a challenge getting these guys to buy into what we, coming from a different school. So just to buy into our terminology and what we're doing.
And like the story of so many position groups on this team, you got bodies in the room. You got guys that you think have pretty high upside potential, but for a lot of them, the production's not there. Again, Nick Barrett's been around forever, and he kind of was at the back of that room last year, ended up redshirting. Monkel Goodwin came in highly touted from Alabama. Same thing with Brownlow Dinley. Devontae Miles played at Bowling Green. Xavier Hardy tore it up down in JUCO. We'll see how he transfers. Got some freshmen coming in as well, but nobody that you definitively say, yeah, that's the guy in the defensive line room. It's going to be interesting to see how many of these guys get playing time, how they rotate, and all those kind of things as we get into this season.
Yeah, and such a stark contrast from what you had last year where you knew, hey, we got 3 co-starters, and then you were going, wow. And we brought in this guy from Pitt and DeAndre Jules, who actually looks like somebody who could play in the NFL. And then you said, wow, Monkel Goodwin is here as well. Nick Barrett is a depth guy. And you kind of, looking back, you had like an embarrassment of riches at that position. And now it's completely flipped. And, I do think having a guy like Nick Barrett come back for the additional year, which you didn't know if you were going to have, it at least does give you a little bit more depth in that room. I think right now, he and Monkel Goodwin are probably your favorites, like if they started the season today. I think the real question there would be, what do these transfers do in terms of just getting acclimated, making an impact? You'd really love for at least one of those guys to push for a starting spot. I think I'd say I've heard the most since really spring has started about Gabriel Brownlow Dindy. You know, I think you look back at the pedigree for him out of high school, 5-star guy, has dealt with injuries. I think just really was not a great fit at Texas A&M. I don't think he, you know, they had the coaching change there. I don't think he and that staff completely vibed, which is an important part of it, man. If you're gonna put the hours these guys put in, comfort level can matter. And then Xavier Hardy is just the one that I think you have to put. We always talk about X factors and wild cards. I put him in that category. JUCO guys, it's fairly common, honestly. They come in and do, you know, just not a whole lot year one. At the same time, he may be the most talented guy in the room just in terms of natural talent and ability. And so if you could get some of that out of him right off the bat, that would obviously be huge. You know, I don't know if we can put those expectations on him, but if you got that, it would be a massive thing for this defense.
You lose, like, I think when you look at the three guys that T-Rob was talking about so much yesterday, with Boogie, you lose, I mean, tons of experience, snaps. Yes, a talented guy, but like one of your team leaders, I think Tonka, super versatile, productive, could you know, really plus pass rusher. And TJ was the biggest, like, game wrecker of all of them. That was the guy that, you know, could win the most one-on-one battles. I think highest upside type guy. So you lose not only production experience, but kind of just different skill sets with all those guys. You know, and I feel like on the roster, you've got some guys that can eventually fit some of those roles. Like, I think Zay Hardy is the biggest game wrecker potential, but probably not this year and probably not game one. Now, if they can get that, that would be huge. Like you said, Wes, I think Barrett can be your veteran presence who's played a lot of snaps. Goodwine, you know, can he be, you know, different player, obviously, but can he be, you know, somewhat similar to Atanka? I think you've got a lot of different roles you're trying to plug these guys into. So definitely some questions to answer. And spring ball, summer, and into preseason camp is going to be absolutely huge for this position, even more than I think several others.
We'll hear from more assistants coming up next. Heard from Lenny Teasley and Sterling Lucas yesterday as well, as the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs rolls along here on your Tuesday on the Game.
That's been going good. First thing is you got to make sure we got the center spot right. So we got a bunch of guys repping there. RJ, Boaz, Marquis, Chase, and, all those guys been doing well. And so, they've been doing well with that. And then we got guys who've been in the program who've played guard. So they're just taking the next step. And then we got some guys doing some different first-time playing guard who've been with us. So all of it's been working well, though. Those guys are getting comfortable in there, working with each other. The new guard, like we got Nick, who's new. And it's just getting comfortable communicating with each other, knowing how everybody ticks and that sort of thing.
Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris with you on your Tuesday, hearing what the assistants had to say yesterday, speaking to the media. That was Lonnie Teasley yesterday talking about replacing the interior of your offensive line. Of course, we know we have Josiah Thompson and Casey Henry returning at the respective tackle spots, but you're losing Rashawn Lee. You're losing Kamar Bell. You're losing Torricelli Simpkins, who was the best out of all your offensive linemen a year ago, and trying to figure out the right combination of those three in the middle of your offensive line to give you the most production this upcoming year. And he mentioned some of the names there of guys that are working in, and we've had some of those guys on the show already and talked about them plenty so far through spring practice these past couple weeks. And again, it's going to be a wait and see of what exactly ends up coming out of the starting five here.
Yeah, it's going to be a wait and see, but I feel good about what they have there. Like, I honestly feel, I would say, a good bit better about that situation than maybe you do about the question marks at defensive tackle. Like, I look at this spot, and I don't know about you, Chris. I think the answers are there. Like, we don't know what the answers are going to be yet in terms of the specific guy, but I think there actually are a lot of potential answers there. I think, I actually talked to Tree and Tro yesterday. We'll have that interview Thursday for Gamecock Club Hour, and I think they both spoke to the media in press conference setting recently as well. And, both those guys are heavily motivated to make an impact this year. I think, especially with Tro, I think there's a really good chance he's one of your starters at guard. I think Nick Sharp's going to have his say in that at some point. I think Tree's going to have his say. It seemed like RJ Newsome has kind of worked at both going into the spring, center and guard. Seems like he may be your favorite right now for backup center potentially. And I tell you what, man, a guy that I've heard a little bit of early buzz about. I think it would probably there'd have to be some stuff happen to get to him, but there are some early positive returns on Shed Surratt, the freshman, from Gaffney, who was one of the more highly recruited offensive linemen in the state and in the country for that class. And, just has come in, I think, and done some good things. So, I think if it got to him, maybe, there's some ability there as well. And, Boaz, we've talked about him at center. It's a long way to go, but you would certainly have to say, based on actions and what we've heard, that Boaz is maybe the early favorite to be the starter at center. Marquis Anderson getting back healthy. He can play guard or center. And so I really do think you have options there. It's just about who wins the job or jobs, and are you able to take it up another step from what we saw last year?
I think we're actually a little closer than maybe I anticipated to, having some answers there, and maybe a little bit closer than even they're going to say publicly, because at all those spots, obviously, you want to keep the competition going. But I think we all know the spots where they lost the three starters are the ones that you take a closer look at, right? Because Josiah Thompson, Casey Henry are both back, both starters last year. Not saying there's no chance they're unseated, but certainly they have been working the most with the ones they've got the best shot. There are a few where you go, those three interior spots, I don't think we can definitively say this guy will be the starter, right? Because we've got the remainder of spring, we got the summer, we got preseason. Like you said, Wes, long time to go. A lot can happen, including, hey, somebody gets banged up, right? But all things being equal, I mean, Boaz has come in and really staked a claim. Like, he's made a push. Tro has seemed to really be doing some good things over at right guard. I feel like you've got maybe the biggest battle, one of the biggest battles on the team might end up being between, again, assuming everybody stays healthy, Nick Sharp and Tree at left guard seems to be a pretty big battle. So you still got competition. I anticipate that'll continue, but it seems like, those guys that we just mentioned have gotten a good many first-team reps. Could that adjust? Could that shift? Sure, because there are, other guys that are going to be in the mix there too.
Go over to the defensive side of things. Sterling Lucas talking to the media yesterday. Obviously, a very successful year for his group last year, and here he is talking a little bit about Dylan Stewart getting set to enter year number 2 with South Carolina.
Right. I think for one, just, taking the next step in terms of his preparation, as a freshman, just coming in, you just want to, at least want to get him to learn what his responsibilities are. But, this next year, really taking the next step and, going big picture. So I think that's helped him a lot. And just what I mentioned, the weight room, man. He really, we really emphasized that this past offseason, and I think you'll see that show up in his game.
Again, we obviously know the numbers speak for themselves for what Dylan Stewart was able to do in year number 1 here at South Carolina. And we talk so much about this edge room, about the complement on the other side of who can be that Kyle Kennard type of guy that can, take some of the focus away from Dylan Stewart, or if the focus is on him, can reap the rewards of that. But at the same time, Dylan Stewart, there are areas where he can continue to get better, get faster, get stronger, continue to put up good numbers as he enters year number 2. And again, if he can, improve on what he did last year, hopefully it's going to be a monster season for him.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something Clayton White talked about with us too before spring started, was just the focus on getting a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger for Dylan. And I think just knowing the full picture. I mean, last year you're kind of, I think, trying to put a freshman in a spot to just go turn him loose and not have to think, not have to process a whole lot during the games, and just go play your game, play fast. And you go into year 2, I got to imagine, not that Dylan ever seemed to be at all lacking confidence, but I got to imagine it gives you a little bit more confidence going into year 2, just knowing you're comfortable with everything, comfortable with the scheme, comfortable with your place. Got you a nice NIL deal too. I mean, life is pretty good at this point if you're Dylan Stewart, and now you got a chance to go be the star and go be the guy. And I think that's exciting for him. That's exciting for this defense. And it does, all these other question marks we have about replacing talent. It'd be a whole different conversation if you didn't also have a guy like Dylan Stewart that you're plugging in there, just knowing what you're going to get from that one edge spot. There was some talk from Sterling about BT as well, Brian Thomas. I do think that sets up, it's nice that you do have a veteran, a guy that's played a lot, a guy that maybe isn't quite your prototypical size guy, elite, length type guy, but just is going to play hard, is going to know exactly what to do, and has kind of earned his status over there. That gives you a good starting point at the edge spot opposite of Dylan. I'm just very curious to see what comes of these young guys. What comes of what is not a young guy, but just hasn't played a whole lot at Carolina, and JT Gear. I mean, he's been banged up. I remember when they signed JT Gear. Maybe there's a little bit of wishful thinking in here, but, this is somebody who was brought in as a transfer, Chris, to play and play a lot, and then he was dealing with an ankle. And, can JT take a step this spring? Can Deju take a step this spring? We'll see.
I mean, JT started, game 1. And I think part of that was, they really liked the preseason that he had. Sterling Lucas really talked him up before the preseason. And Dylan Stewart was a true freshman going into game 1. And then Dylan Stewart put out, an epic highlight reel for the Old Dominion game. So, we should probably let this guy start. But I actually talked to him yesterday, guys, and we'll have that interview next week. Had a brief conversation with Dylan, who's a man of few words. He prefers to let his play do the talking. But he said, hey, I'm a lot more comfortable, which is, how about that thought, right? Like, he came in, had about as good of a first college football game for a true freshman as you could have, but kind of admitted, hey, I was going a lot off physical ability, right? And he feels a lot more comfortable. Said he feels, Wes, you mentioned earlier, probably stronger. Yes, feels stronger. Feels like he can play the run better. And from what we've heard, has been doing, as expected and more in practice. So, good for Carolina's offensive tackles that they've got, him to try to block in practice. That certainly makes you better. Mike Smith told me during that conversation, by the way, that you just got to hope that Dylan's like trying to try out some new moves or something, because he's just, especially for a tight end, very hard to block. But yeah, I mean, that's what we forget. Like Dylan Stewart, as good as he was last year, he wasn't a junior; he's a freshman. So he's got more to go get this year in terms of reaching his potential.
Yeah, we'll keep the Cup football conversation going as the week goes along. Going to hear from Coach Beamer coming up in right about an hour, as he has his usual Tuesday press conference. I have that for you on the halftime show. We'll jump into basketball coming up next. Lamont Paris some interesting comments yesterday on the SEC Network, and Wes has some more information on the 2 transfers that have already come in from the portal earlier on this week. That's coming up next. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Star Wes and Chris on your Tuesday here on the game.
All right, everyone, if you're looking for a great lunch recommendation, here as lunchtime is upon us now, you know what we're going to recommend. It's Firehouse Subs, 15 convenient locations all around the Midlands. So no matter where you are around the Midlands, there's a Firehouse Subs close to you. You can also use the website or the app. That's my favorite method. That's all of our favorite method around here. Firehouse Subs app. You can earn yourself some rewards toward future purchases and use the Rapid Rescue to go so your sandwich is waiting on you when you walk in the store. Again, 15 different locations. It'll automatically show you the one closest to you. And check out their new limited time offering. It's the Hook and Ladder partnered with Hot Ones. So you got the Zesty Garlic Hook and Ladder. That's the milder of the two. And also the Spicy Dill Hook and Ladder with the Last Stab Reaper sauce, the pickle marinated in that sauce. If you're sensitive to spice, maybe go with the Zesty Garlic. They're both delicious. Get them now. Firehouse Subs.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tower West Chris with you on your Tuesday on the game. Reminder, craft beer card is still on our website on 1075thegame.com. Click the Sweet Deals tab and purchase it for just $59. That saves you around $300. Pretty good deal there. Craft beer card on 1075thegame.com. Getting into men's basketball, of course, we're getting set for the men's Final Four this upcoming weekend to crown a national champion. Lamont Paris yesterday was on SEC this morning, and some interesting things coming away from that conversation that he had with Peter Burns and the crew over there, and reference to NIL. He mentioned at one point that a start in the SEC is worth no less than $1 million currently. He also went on to say that Colin Murray Boyles got an offer of $2.5 million from another SEC team that was competing in the NCAA tournament to essentially come play for them. Again, this is per Lamont Paris yesterday on SEC this morning, and we know kind of an idea that CMB would fetch a high NIL value, which he had a good package here from everything that we know about that. But seeing the numbers put out there, it really kind of jumps out to you, and a coach being so open about it is something we don't always see.
Yeah, we don't. And I'll say this, guys. So here's the thing about Lamont Paris. My man is very measured in everything he does or says. I mean, if he's going on a national radio show and, this was not something said in the heat of the moment on the sideline or even right after a game. I think this was said purposely, and he even said, we found out about it. So I think there was a little bit of a, hey, guys, here's where things are. A little bit of a, hey, other team, we know about this. How deep do we go with this, guys? Is there a little messaging, maybe even to your fan base, about how much it costs to put together a roster? I mean, maybe there's a lot of there could be a lot of reasons that you could tack on to why exactly he said this, but my belief is that this was probably not a passing comment. He very easily could have left this not, in the public eye, but he chose to put it out there.
Well, you probably have 4 or 5 different reasons. I mean, some of the ones you just laid out, and there could even be others why you go ahead and mention this. It could, I think it also just illustrates, whether it was purposeful or not, that, things have changed even from last offseason. Every school has realized and made the decision, every school that I know of, we got to spend more this offseason, right? Like, remember going back to the conversation where it was reported that LSU and South Carolina were, toward the bottom of the league in spending, and maybe a couple weeks after that, it gets reported, hey, did you know LSU's going to spend more? Hey, Oklahoma's going to spend this. We know South Carolina's going to spend more. It's just the reality and the nature of it. So, and it's hard to know, like, you hear this a lot. X school offered player X amount. It happens in football, baseball, basketball. Of course, football and basketball, you hear about it the most. You've got in women's basketball, you've got Olivia Miles, instead of going pro, is like, no, I'll stay in college, and it seems like
it's going to be a number, I bet.
It'll be a big number, and it'll be more than $75,000, which is what her salary would be. So, point is, it's hard to know, like, is that a collective offering that without the coaches knowing? Probably not. Is it one where's that coming from? We know CMB is a player, especially if you look at, hey, an SEC starter or a Power 4 starter is around $1 million. Lamont is not just pulling that number out of thin air, by the way. CMB is an above average starter, so
right.
He's a guy that could fetch a lot.
Well, and going back to the reporting, that was from the Bengal Tiger several weeks back about South Carolina and LSU being at the bottom of the SEC, and the number being reported from that, according to his sources, were that those two schools are operating around or under $2 million. So based on those numbers, you're basically saying we had enough money for about 2 quality starters in the SEC this year. And again, the greatest year in league history, and one of those teams is going to be playing for the national championship and could win it here coming up in in a couple of days' time. So again, I think, like Wes said, there's a lot of avenues to why you'd put this out there, a lot of messaging to not only people within your circle, but obviously other schools around the SEC. And again, this is going to be a very important offseason for Coach Parrish and this team. And as we talked about yesterday, you're already bringing in a couple of guys from the transfer portal. And Wes, you have more information that you wrote about on Gamecock Central about just how those guys ended up landing here at South Carolina.
Yeah, and I think to complete that thought there, Tyler, we also have to remember these numbers are ever changing. Like the amount for 1 year is going to be, in this case, it's still growing. And, also this time last year, Carolina did have success in the transfer portal with guys they targeted. So I think that has to be mentioned as well. Now, did they miss on some point guards that you look back and say, could have used one of those guys? Of course. But, it's not like they were completely lacking NIL resources last year. Like they did have success going to get some guys. Is there going to be a lot more where that came from this year? I think that's incredibly safe to say. And, I'll be curious to see also. So, Chris, what is our guess on the percentage currently for rev share for men's basketball in the SEC?
Probably, math's not one of my strong suits. So if you go 75 to 80 for football, so, 10 to 15 for men's basketball, something like that.
10 to 15%?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it was like 5% for all the other sports
so
combined.
What is that in dollar bills?
Dollar bills. What would that be if you're working off 20 million, 2 million, 2.5? But teams are going to spend.
Well, because it's 18 total when you're not counting scholarships, I believe.
Yeah, and I don't know.
Sorry, let's say 2 mil.
Sure. Yeah, somewhere around there.
Where's the other?
Yeah,
if
the rest is going to come from
an SEC
NIL.
starter, but the NIL has to pass scrutiny.
Yeah,
supposedly. Yeah. That's another conversation.
But by the way, very important to remember, next Monday is the House hearing on the 7th.
Yeah.
Where, again,
for approval,
if things go how we think they're going to go, this all takes off running as we head into the summer and head into the fall for the 2025 season, where this Wes, really starts happening.
I think the point you're making is one player can take your rev share.
Yeah, but I'm also saying if an SEC starter is $1 million, $5 million in starters, even if we're not talking about a superstar, and then we still have the bench.
Yeah.
But where does that money come from?
It's a great question.
How can you how does that work?
Got to get creative, man.
Yeah. That's
scrutiny. And my point being, for those who just gloss over when they hear about this stuff, the simple answer is the rev share percentage can be handed to that player. No questions asked.
Yep.
If you're making up the rest of it in, quote, real NIL, for lack of a better way to say it, if Tyler owns a company and his company wants to pay CMB, then there's going to be a separate entity saying, well, you can't give him $1 million to tweet, go to Tyler's company once. It has to be a fair market value, whatever that even means. Who knows?
Yeah. That's what they're saying. And so the other question is, will that be legally challenged? The answer is yes. So it's hard to say. Everybody in the country, what you hear around men's basketball is you basically have to spend. I mean, what would you say the floor is? $5 million. That's like the floor. That's like you're not doing too much at $5 million, and people are going way up from there. So they're going to figure it out somehow, and ultimately, the funds will get paid out, I think. I don't know how, but they will.
Yeah. Again, it's complicated. There's people more important than us that got to figure these kind of things out, but it's definitely not going to get cheaper, that's for sure. We'll come back and hit on some of those transfers that did commit to South Carolina earlier on this week, and more details on how they ended up here coming up next. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here in the game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tower West Chris along with you on your Tuesday. Tonight in Gamecock Baseball, back in action looking to end their 7-game skid as they take on Presbyterian. First pitch at 7 o'clock. Premium coverage starting at 6:45 here on the
World
game
Series.
in Columbia. Yeah, Game 7 of the World Series, according to Coach Maneri. You need it bad. I'll say that much.
You know who's not going to see the World Series this year, Wes?
I don't want to talk about it, Chris.
It's been a rough 5 games. Do you know over the last 27 innings, the Braves have had 10 hits and 1 run?
Things are going well.
And you know when your leadoff hitter, one of your biggest offseason acquisitions, gets popped for PEDs.
Your only
4 games in, your only offseason acquisition. Yeah. It's not great.
He should have just said it was in his shampoo.
I know, right?
Well, and it's funny because, you know, why he was such a big deal, because his numbers were great last year in San Diego. Now you're like, oh, that makes sense.
Now we know why.
Now we know why. And he's out for 80 games, and even if when he does come back, can't play in the postseason if you make it that far. Well, you can't. The season's not over in April, but it's not off to a great start.
Has there ever been a worse start by a contender? Like I know there's been worse starts by, I'm sure, teams that just had, like the White Sox.
Yeah, I don't think an 0-5 team's ever made the postseason.
0-4 teams have.
0-4 teams.
The Braves were 0-4 in 2021. Yeah,
but 0-5. Now again, you did start off against 2 of the toughest teams and on the road in the Padres and the Dodgers, but still.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
My apologies. We were all in good moods.
It's bad. Like
it's not good.
And then Renato Lopez is hurt.
Yeah,
too.
he's on the IL for a couple weeks.
Like you could not have framed up a worse start.
No, I mean you're still waiting on Acuna and Strider to come back, but yeah,
they just shipped Ian Anderson off to the Angels. Like they just gave up on him.
Yeah.
What's his name? The reliever was pitching in high leverage situation on Thursday and is off the team by Monday.
Yeah, Neris.
Yeah,
not great.
Not great, Bob.
What is great is hopefully South Carolina basketball next season. Again, we talked yesterday about Eagle Staff and Essendoko coming in from the transfer portal. And Wes, you wrote about some Gamecock Central. Some more information on how exactly those guys did end up committing to South Carolina.
Yeah, and maybe more news to come. We'll see. Lots of smoke surrounding Michi Johnson, the potential of a reunion.
Who says you can't go home again, right?
I'm just looking forward to the On3 graphic that I was trying to think about this last night. Would say Ohio State to South Carolina to Ohio State to South Carolina.
I don't think it's ever happened before. 3 transfers between 2 schools.
I was talking about that with my wife last night. I was like, I really can't think of an instance of a guy starting at a school, transferring, going back to the original school, and then back to the second school. I can't think of it.
I feel like it's happened, but I can't tell you.
It has happened definitely in recruiting. Like there was a Auburn Bama kid, like he flipped back and forth like 12 times, but it was before he signed or enrolled.
Yeah, that's different. Committing is different than being on campus, being on the team. That's a whole different deal.
You had the Arden Key, the re-decommit, from South Carolina. Great term.
Re-decommit?
The re-decommitment. When you decommit, you commit again, then you decommit again. It's a re-decommit.
Okay.
So you're not in the dictionary.
Yeah, I'll have to add that one.
So you have like a retransfer here.
Yeah, and so what you would have potentially would be you'd start this class with obviously Essendoko, Eagle Staff, and then Michi, and then there's some other guys that are still in on. I think you probably ultimately want a point guard in there as well. But I thought with Eagle Staff, worth sort of highlighting just what a good job they did. First, getting involved. Had a Zoom meeting with him last week. Very quickly got the visit set, got him on campus, got his family in town, and then Saturday was basically like a crash course in what South Carolina, as a school is all about. Went to the football practice, went to the baseball game. Of course, there was some basketball involved as well. And just really, we know how quickly things move in the transfer portal era, but made kind of a quick connection with Lamont Paris, and just they were able, despite the fact that you're battling Gonzaga, Kentucky, Kansas in his recruitment, they really sold him on, hey, come to South Carolina. We're going to kind of potentially build this thing around you to an extent. You can be like a focal point as opposed to going elsewhere and maybe being a little bit more of just a piece of what they're trying to do. And, I think we all look back at this past season. We know South Carolina needed to add some firepower to this offense, but they also needed to add some guys that can bring that firepower but still fit into what Carolina likes to be on offense. And so certainly in terms of like the guards and wings, like we know CMB obviously was great, but in terms of other guys other than him that could take over a game this year, you just, other than maybe Jamari at times, you just didn't have that. So I think this is someone that definitely felt like there was a place for him at South Carolina, and Carolina did a great job of just showing him exactly how he would be used within this scheme. So, again, if you add Michi, I think there's a place for Michi and Eagle staff to be on the court at the same time. I think Esendoko, if they can get out of him what they see in him, I think he's probably a starter as well. Then the question becomes, who else do you add? Obviously, there's some other guys floating around out there. Who do you add at point guard? And then the big piece, can you get CMB back at the 4?
I mean, that's the piece that, puts it. It makes the whole puzzle fit together, right?
What if you had a portal point guard, Michi, Eagle staff, CMB, Esendoko as your 5?
Yeah. And then you add in, you mentioned the bench earlier, young guys.
You have Eli off the bench.
Yep.
You have Jordan Butler back.
Yep.
Ugasuk off the bench. I mean,
by the way, Eli implying big things coming. I don't know what exactly that means, but
I think some of that probably referring to Michi.
Yeah,
maybe.
So
we'll see.
But you've got some guys, like, you start thinking about this thing, and you start thinking about scoring, Eagle staff, Michi. These are guys that can get hot and fill it up.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Definitely going to be interesting to see as this unfolds during the offseason. That'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Halftime show, myself, Terry Ford, up next here on your Tuesday on the Game.